Is Vandy ready for a bounce back season in 2024? We're going to talk about why and how that can happen right here on the Locked On Vandy podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. Each and every day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, if you're wondering what this is, I've just watched Northwestern with an interim head coach, David Braun. I keep wanting to call him Ryan Braun for some reason, but with an interim head coach. He's now the permanent head coach thanks to going 7-5 in the regular season. They had a tumultuous 1-11 season a year ago. Some really bad, I don't even want to call it off-season drama. It was preseason turmoil, and they turn it around. They go 8-5 this season. David Braun, coach of the year in the Big Ten. They have a really, really nice bowl win over Utah. Now, this isn't Locked On Northwestern by any stretch, but I am impressed by what they have done, and it should honestly give Vanderbilt hope. All right, can Clark Lee do that? Well, here's why I think he has a chance to have a really, really nice season, and I think that he can because they have now committed to NIL, and because of that, as it currently sits right now, and they're not done yet, they're sitting currently number 8 in 24/7's transfer portal rankings. Okay, they're sitting at number 8. Number 1 is Ole Miss. Okay, so they're having a really, really nice offseason so far, not only with just transfer portal stuff, but hiring Tim Beck, I think, led to a lot of that stuff, and I've said that all along. Vandy has added some really, really nice weapons, Keyshawn Johnson being one of them. Loic Foungy is another one. I think that's a really, really good add. And some of the other pieces like Randon Fontenette, Zaylen Wood, getting some nice pieces on defense. Colby Taylor, the big 6'4" corner from Wyoming. I mean, I think that when you look at these pieces and how they fit in, they're big-time positions of need. I think one of the biggest ones that we got and that we're still looking for is offensive line. Steven Lasoya. If you want to hear the full kind of breakdown of what Steve Lasoya means to this team, to this program, and what the addition of him to the mix, go back and listen to a previous show, Locked On Vandy on YouTube, to do that. But I just think that when you look at how these things have shaken out, Vandy is not supposed to do this, right? They 2-10 last year, this past season, right? 2-10 this season, not last season. Last season they were 5-7, just barely missed a bowl game. This season 2-10 went way downhill. Things were not good. They lose 16 players to the portal, lose pretty much your entire quarterback room and your entire starting wide receiver unit. You lose DeRicky Wright, who was arguably your best defender, save C.J. Taylor, who actually did return. So that's really, really good. But, you lose so much in the portal. You lose a bunch of offensive linemen. You lose Ethan Barr, which I went on Locked On SEC, and talked about the loss of Ethan Barr, what that means to this defense. I'm not going to get into that because he is now a Washington Husky. If you want more on Ethan Barr, we appreciate his time here at Vanderbilt, but if you want more on him, and you want to keep up with Ethan Barr, Locked On Huskies, go check it out. Your show for the Washington Huskies. But for Clark Lee, I mean, this is all setting up, and they're not done, right? They're not done in the portal. It's all setting up for them to have a really, really nice run. I mean, you look at the parallels, like Northwestern, that guy was dead in the water. I mean, he was an interim coach. They had to hire him right before fall camp. Like there was no hiring another coach in that position. It was, they got rid of Pat Fitzgerald, and that was that, man. They were off and running. They were looking for answers. They couldn't, I mean, at the beginning of the year, you didn't know what was going to happen, right? I mean, it was bad, dude. Like, and rightfully so. I mean, there were some obvious distractions. They didn't have much of a roster to begin. I mean, they're returning a 1-11 roster, and you have that distraction. That guy should be National Coach of the Year if he's not. So, again, I was very, very impressed, and I think Clark Lea can do the same thing because Clark Lea is taking over the defensive play calling. That's another factor, right? Clark Lea taking over the defensive play calling. I think that's going to be a huge factor in this thing that nobody's really kind of paying attention to because it was weird watching him be the CEO and just kind of sitting back and not really didn't seem like he was really doing much. Didn't really see. I mean, you know that he is because any head coach at any level is doing stuff, but it just didn't appear that he was really like it. Just what it appeared like was he was detached from the situation. He was not in it. Like, I'm just not interested. I don't really have a role here. He was just looked like he was just a guy on the sideline that the refs had to remind him that he's the head coach. You know, it was like one of those scenarios. It's like, dude, you're the head coach. Like, don't forget that. And now I think with him having his hands in the defense, going back into play calling, I think that's going to be a huge, huge thing because he needs to be involved, man. He needs to be involved. He's too good of a defensive mind to not be involved with the play calling, with the game planning, things like that. I mean, I think there's going to be some things that he passes off day to day because I think Melvin Rice, I haven't heard that he's officially on board as the DB's coach, but he is the favorite to land that position. I'm going to look that up right now as we speak on the handy dandy footballscoop.com. But Melvin Rice was the defensive coordinator at New Mexico State. So, I mean, maybe he takes a good chunk of the game planning, but I think it's going to be Clark Lea's defense. It's going to be Clark Lea calling the plays, all of that stuff. So I have a hard time believing that this defense is not going to improve drastically because that's what made those Notre Dame teams so good. That's what made them playoff teams. Now their strength and conditioning and the depth of their roster did not do them any favors. But I think getting them to that point was a big part of that defense. Was big part due in big part to that defense. Excuse me. Got a little tongue tied. It's still that post Christmas tongue tie, or you haven't really like Christmas Day. You don't really talk to anybody that much, and you kind of forget how to talk. But I think it's something that you're going to see. I'm going to be interested to see kind of how he does with the staff breakdown. It's not officially announced, but I think it's going to happen. It just seems like the entire New Mexico State operation is going to come over to Vanderbilt, which I don't know that that's a bad thing. They went down in Auburn and they beat Auburn. So, but yeah, they're not done in the portal though. I got a message on, I guess they're calling it, I can't call it X. It's weird to call it X, but I got a message on X. And it was like talking about offensive line and how like we're still going to be bottom feeders if we don't bolster the offensive line. Well, I mean, we still got some things cooking. It's definitely not over. And we got some high schoolers coming in and we got some guys on the roster still. And just that's still a position of need. And there's going to be a spring transfer period too. So you're going to get chances. There's going to be chances to add people. No doubt. So we'll see when the dust settles, when we get into fall camp, that's when we'll be like, okay, that's when we can either say, okay, this group is going to be really, really good, or we're going to hit the panic button. But I think honestly, I think the play calling is going to help. I think being I think being what was the word I'm looking for? Being having variety, right? Being deceptive, being just having that variety there to be able to draw from and to say, okay, well, defenses can't get settled in on this or that or anything really, because there's so many things that are built off of one concept, right? And that's kind of the way, as a play caller myself, or former play caller at this point, I'm a free agent, but that's kind of how I like it. I like to have that one concept and just kind of build off of it to where you're not making wholesale changes. You're just saying, okay, well, instead of you doing this, now you're going to do that and get to the same place that you were in the original play call. We're just, it's called window dressing. And I think there's a lot of that happening. And I think that's going to make things more difficult for defenses. And you hope that can make a difference with the talent and the lack of and the talent gap that that still actually exists between Georgia and Vandy. Like when I say between Georgia and Vandy, I mean like between Georgia and the rest of the conference all the way down to Vandy, who finished last in the conference. But that talent gap still exists. I mean, it may have gone from like here to here, right? It may have gone from like here to there a little bit, maybe. I don't know. There's just some really, really good players in this league. This is a tough league regardless, but no doubt, though, I think Vandy's having a really, really good transfer portal run. So that could be the first reason why this thing turns around. This thing can turn around pretty quick. And transfer portal rankings being ranked number 8 has a lot to do with it. You have Jeremiah Dillon and Nate Johnson as your top recruits. You bolster some positions on defense. You get a big lineman that can play on the interior, which is a big time position of need, and then you get some receivers to solidify that room a little bit too for incoming offensive coordinator Tim Beck. So that is what we're talking about. But when we come back, I read an interesting piece on Vanderbilt Sports or VandySports.com, and we're going to talk about it. It's in regards to this recruiting class. There's some interesting facts, interesting numbers that I came across, but we're going to talk about that next. All right, FanDuel, brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. All right, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Yeah, I love playing the anytime touchdowns. Those are a lot of fun. So, but yeah, FanDuel is really, really good. All right, we are back. Segment number 2. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen. And of course, thank you to the everydayers for making all of this possible. If I look back at my view count from last week, I had almost 1,000 views from last week. And it's all because of you in the power of social media. So follow us on social media, X and now have an Instagram. Locked On Vandy is the name for both. Follow me on X if you're not already, and then jump over to IG as well. There's going to be some content that is happening over there that may be exclusive to. There's going to be some IG exclusive as we go. There's going to be some things that we cross post from IG to YouTube, things like that. So just follow the IG account, and I'm getting better as an Instagram poster. So make sure you follow that account. That's going to be a really, really good thing for you to follow. We're going to post some of the show stuff, and it's going to be cool. All right. It's going to be really cool. Make sure you follow that. Please. Okay. No, just kidding. Yes, definitely follow that. And definitely go back to YouTube and look at all of our past episodes if you've missed anything. We've talked about all of these recruits, not in depth, but we have talked about all these recruits, and at some point we're going to go in depth on each of these recruits as we go, as probably a little bit after the late signing. Oh, it's a late signing day now. It used to be just signing day, but here you go. But I'm excited. And when you get done here, make Locked On SEC your second listen. Make them your second listen. They do a great job. Zach Blackerby does a great job on Locked On Auburn. They are on our schedule, so we're going to do a crossover at some point in the year 2024. Make sure you listen to Stephen Willis on Locked On Ole Miss. Too bad Ole Miss is not on the schedule anymore. But Caroline Bryan, Caroline Fenton, Locked On LSU. She's a local host here in Nashville. We're going to get together and chop it up at some point because LSU is on the schedule as well, and she's going to tell you everything you need to know about not only visiting Baton Rouge but the game itself. All right, so recruiting by the numbers. Okay, VanderbiltSports.com, VandySports.com. Sean Williams at Sean W_Rivals. Wrote this article, and I thought it was very interesting and thought I should share it with you. If you're not a subscriber to VandySports.com, you should jump on over there and you should read this content. You should listen to me as I talk about this content, and we'll go from there. I don't know if I'm supposed to plug that, but I'm just referring my sources. So here you go. By the numbers. Okay, so this is Vanderbilt signed 20 prospects during the December signing day. Class that currently ranks 38th nationally. So here's some key numbers revolving around that. Right, 38th class ranked nationally according to Rivals.com. They had one 4-star prospect signed in this year's class from Texas. It was safety Dante Carter. He is the first 4-star signee the Commodores had since 2022, which featured A.J. Swan and Daniel Martin. They've had 2 quarterbacks signed for this class, Jeremy St. Hilaire and Whit Muschamp. That's the most quarterbacks since 2022 when you had 3, Swan, Dickey, and Taylor, who Drew Dickey is still on the roster. He's the only quarterback left from that class. All right, 4 prospects signed that played high school football within the Tennessee state borders. That number was 6 in the 23 class, 3 and 22. So they're starting to kind of become more aware of the state of Tennessee, and you're starting to see that with the transfer portal as well. Stephen Lasoya is an Overton product. Shout out to MNPS. So they're starting to kind of realize that not only Tennessee, but the mid-state in particular, like AKA your own backyard, is starting to become rich with talent. So why not go get it? Why not shut down these borders? Why not shut down the mid-state? Don't let that school from the east come over, right? You know what school I'm talking about. They signed 4 players from the state of Texas. 23 class featured 5 signees from Texas, and their 22 class had 3. So they signed 4. 2 of them were from the same school, so that's kind of interesting. They had 5 decommits throughout the recruiting cycle. Jaron Sensabaugh, who ended up at Missouri, I think just wanted to get out of Nashville. Harrison Moore went to Georgia Tech. He was once committed and decommitted. Dorian Williams, he's still undecided, so may be able to get him back in the boat. Galijah Theodule, also still undecided. And Martrice Dillard signed at Bowling Green. Not sure what happened there. Lost out to Bowling Green. Don't know how I feel about that one. It is what it is. Whatever. All right, 5 signees will enroll early at Vanderbilt. That's Dante Carter, Alvin Williams Jr., Callahan Blair, Simeon Boulware, and Mason Carter. 3 of those guys are defensive ends. Big position of need. All right, 8 signees have ranked 5.7 3-star or higher. That number was 6 in 2023 and 8 in 22. Again, back to my original point. Some of these numbers are the reason why the needle is pointing upwards, right? That stat right there is one of the reasons why it's pointing upwards. You're getting better talent in. You're getting You're filling positions of need. You're starting to attract 4-star talent thanks to NIL. You're starting to get some of these guys in. All right, 11 different states are represented among the 20 signees. States include Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Mississippi, as my allergies are kicking in, Maryland, Massachusetts, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, and Alabama. So, is Vandy becoming more of a national brand? I guess so. We're big in Oklahoma, apparently. So I thought that was an interesting article. Those are some numbers that I think kind of further. I think the point of that is kind of put recruiting into perspective a little bit and say, okay, well maybe, when the horn made its final sound after the Tennessee game in Knoxville on the way home, sky's falling, Vanderbilt program's at an all-time low. Fire Clark Lee, all of that stuff, right? Clean house, get rid of everybody. We're losing people to the portal. Oh my, I think panic had set in and much like this fan base kind of decides, and for good reason for the most part, it's been the word of the day apparently is tumultuous. It's been tumultuous for Vanderbilt. In their athletic history, man. It's like you just can't buy a break. James Franklin comes in and gives you a little bit of reprieve. Derek Mason has a really good first year, I believe. He had one really good year and then went downhill. You had some good years under Bobby Johnson. The Jay Cutler years were pretty good. You had these pockets of pretty good years in Vandy football, but never really like any sort of consistency. In the last 2-3 years have been abysmal. And so for good reason, but these are the things you should look for and say, okay, we have hope, which if you don't have much to latch onto, latch onto that. You have hope. There's some good things happening right in front of you. There's some good players coming in under a coach that went 2-10 last year, who is on the hottest of hot seats. I think, I don't know, but it's there. There's some things that are there, but the schedule doesn't do us any favors. All that stuff. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. But right now I got some hope. I think Vandy has a chance. They have a chance to be good. They have a chance to go from 2-10 to a bowl game. I think they have that chance. They have the pieces. They just need to add a couple more pieces, but they have some pieces. They have the pieces to get it done. They just need to get it done. They just need to do it. Just do it. As Nike says, just do it. Make it happen. You can. You're capable. You got good coaching. Clark Lee is now the new defense coordinator. You got number eight portal class as of right now, as of this day, 12/27/23, right? That could change. Hopefully that way, not this way. But you've got the number 8 class portal rankings. You've got the 38th class ranked, which is your best in a while in recruiting. Got a couple 4-stars on board. You're starting to recognize the mid-state a little bit, and you're able to go into Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, some of these states that, like Texas is it's a rich state as far as college programs and talent. There's a lot of schools to go for, and you can go in there and pluck 4 guys, including a 4-star. That's pretty good. Considering you're 2-10, that's really good, actually, considering the situation. So, just keep that in mind. All right, just keep that in mind. So, when we get back, we're going to finish up the show. Jerry Kill, interesting things happening with Jerry Kill potentially. We'll talk about that here in a second. I know you're probably wondering what that weird point was, but we don't have so for you YouTube viewers, a little behind the velvet rope, I guess, is I don't have a live ad read for this for that block. So that was more for like the audio side of it to say, okay, it's gonna look really weird because it's just gonna like show that bumper and then like a flash of me, and then here's me explaining it. So a little behind the velvet rope for you there. That's what's going to happen. On the audio side of it, there will be some ads placed in there. I'll put 2 markers there, and then you'll actually hear something. But for you YouTube viewers, it's just gonna look strange for right now until you get me to 1,000 subscribers. Password, give me to 1,000. I don't know if I'm up to 100 yet, but let's get to 1,000. That's the goal. Get to 1,000, and I won't have those weird and then it cuts back to the regular segment. Like I won't have any of those. There'll be commercials there, which means better content, which means like they're gonna. It's all good, right? And thank you for you everydayers. Make sure you follow the show on social media. Follow me at Coach Burton 36, which you can see right there. And so we're all good, man. So Jerry Kill, if they hire him as an analyst, I have a hard time believing that this season's going to be bad. Like I don't think it's going to be 12-0 by any stretch, but like I have a hard time believing that this program's not trending up if Jerry Kill's willing to come as an analyst. Like that would be a heck of a hire, honestly. Like I think that would be an amazing hire because what he's done everywhere he's been as a head coach, what he's done is incredible. The turnaround that he had at New Mexico State, they were irrelevant. Like you're like, what? They have a program there? They have two programs, New Mexico and New Mexico State. Like, what's going on here? Like, they won 10 games. They beat Auburn. They looked good doing it too. It wasn't a fluke. It looked like they belonged. Like he's a phenomenal coach. The reason why he's coming over to Vanderbilt as an analyst is because of medical stuff, and he can't do the rigors of being a head coach. Otherwise, he'd probably be a head coach. But I think having him in your corner is going to be extremely valuable for Clark Lea. I think that guy giving Clark Lea advice is going to be very, very valuable because he has turned around programs like Minnesota, who is largely irrelevant, who is largely a small fish in a big pond full of bigger fish in the Big Ten. Like Minnesota was a program that when Jerry Kill took over, they were down big time, if my memory serves me correctly. And my Big Ten friends, Matt Perkins and Josh Cook, can remind me. But they were once and still referred to as the Goofs. Well, he made them relevant for a while. They were on a tear. I think that's when they had like Marion Barber and that crew. And he had some health problems and he had to resign. And Tracy Clades took over. Like he had Minnesota as a, they were going to be viable in the Big Ten. He's been obviously his recent stint at New Mexico State where he goes down in Auburn and was actually by far the better team. So like having him advise you on program building stuff, how to set up practice structures, some secrets to recruiting, how to integrate different things into your schemes, how to have an efficient, effective staff meeting, how to talk with boosters, there's some things that Jerry Kill has done successfully that he can say, hey, Clark, follow this blueprint and you'll be just fine. And if he does, great. If he doesn't, if he decides that he's not going to listen to Jerry Kill because he's an analyst, well, then fate is sealed, I guess, right? But I think that would be amazing. Anytime you can get former head coaches in there as analysts, it's outstanding. I mean, I think that's one of the secrets that I'm not saying Vandy's going to turn into Alabama anytime soon, but that's what Alabama's done. That's what Nick Saban's done. Nick Saban is saying, okay, all right, you failed as a head coach. Come be an analyst for a year or two, get back on your feet, right? Butch Jones was just in a bowl game. He turned about as red as that sign right here behind me because they called offsides, and I can't tell. It was a bad call. I don't blame him. I mean, it's still funny that he got that red, but I don't blame him because it was a terrible, terrible call. The ref couldn't say who was offsides. But like having guys that have had any shred of success, they can impart their wisdom on the Alabama staff, right? Like Kirby Smart sitting in those meetings had to have picked up on something. Not only from Nick Saban, but from Muschamp, Jimbo, which, believe it or not, some of the analysts that he started bringing on toward the later halves of Kirby's time there. Like, what's his name? God, I'm drawing a blank now. The guy at Loxley at Maryland, like he had to pick up on stuff. Like Lane Kiffin picks up on like these guys. Like they're not just like when you bring these guys in, they're not just sitting there. Anyway, I could go on for it forever. All right, I'm at my time. Okay, I got to figure out a way to not go overtime every time. But it just gets interesting. But Jerry Kill coming in as an analyst as a possibility. I hope that can happen. That would be tremendous hire for Clark Lee. That would be amazing for his career if he could get Jerry Kill as an analyst. So we're going to wrap it there. Okay. Vandy can turn this thing around. I have faith. I have hope. And I just told you why. Okay. I just gave you a few reasons why. Hopefully I'll keep building on that. All right. In future episodes, we're going to talk more basketball. We're going to get into baseball stuff in probably late January, early February as baseball season gets closer. Always recruiting and portal stuff with football. And then we'll just keep this thing cranking. Everydayers, thank you. Continue. Do what you do. Get us to 1,000 subscribers. That would be amazing if that could happen. But until then, keep on trucking. And as always, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Anchor down.